Let's go Dolphins! The Dolphins coaching staff is officially formed, and you won't believe some of the names that will assume important roles on the team. Seriously, when this list was released, many people were surprised, and not because it was full of stars. The Miami Dolphins are betting on a new path, unexpected names, and connections that have left some fans excited, and others extremely worried. But what's behind these choices? Will this be the beginning of a new era or just another cycle of promises that will end in frustration? But before continuing, if you're a true Dolphins fan, I want to see your strength. Like this now, because only true fans support the team even in the most uncertain times. And if you've been following the Dolphins for more than 20 years, do this. Comment below, go Dolphins. My heart bleeds blue and orange. I want to see who the veterans of this passionate fan base are. Get ready, because what I'm about to tell you about this new coaching staff will make you completely rethink what to expect from the 2026 season. The announcement has been made. Sean Dugan will be the new defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins, a name that had been circulating behind the scenes, and it was only a matter of time before it became official. The choice came after the Dolphins waited for possible head coach opportunities for Anthony Weaver, hoping to secure compensatory third-round draft picks. But that didn't happen. The team waited until the end, and the decision to go with Dugan was made without that bonus. But who is Sean Dugan? For those unfamiliar, Dugan was the linebackers coach for the Green Bay Packers last season and had previously served as a defensive assistant there in 2024. Before that, he worked as co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Boston College under Jeff Hafley, the current head coach of the Dolphins. This shows a pattern. The new staff is being assembled based on trust and rapport between the professionals, which can be good or not. So, fans, does this please you? And there's more. John Embry will continue as tight ends coach, which is good news considering his experience and the respect he commands in the locker room. Now that the dust is starting to settle, we can look at this new group and better understand the shape this team is beginning to take. The coaching staff is practically complete. Jeff Hafley as head coach, Sean Dugan in charge of the defense, Bobby Slowick as offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett as quarterbacks coach, Chris Tabor in charge of special teams, and many other names bringing different experiences, some familiar to the fans, others completely new to the Miami scene. In fact, some sectors of the fan base have criticized the Miami Dolphins for becoming a kind of Miami Packers, since 5 members of the coaching staff came directly from Green Bay. But let's put the numbers into perspective. 5 out of a total of 16 members. Is this really a Green Bay takeover? It seems more like a natural connection between professionals who already know and trust each other. And this is common in the NFL. Coaches bring their guys, people they've worked with before, who know the team's philosophy and can execute a shared vision. Is that good or bad? It depends on the results on the field. Jeff Hafley is clearly surrounding himself with figures he's worked with before. Bobby Slowick, for example, has worked with him before. Al Washington too. Matt Applebaum returns to the team after his stint in 2022, followed by a season at Boston College. They are trustworthy guys, and Hafley wants a cohesive group to put his plan into practice. But let's be honest, none of these names have an immediate impact. Nobody causes that explosive excitement like when Vic Fangio arrived. Nobody makes the fans say, now it's going to happen. Hafley, incidentally, wasn't even among the top 3 names preferred by fans or the most savvy insiders. John Harbaugh, Kubiak, and LaFleur were more talked about, more desired names. Hafley, in many cases, appeared in 5th or 6th place on the preference lists. But the truth is, he has an interesting mindset that seems to fit with the Dolphins' new restructuring plan. That, in itself, already sparks some hope. And this hope comes with uncertainties. There are coaches in the group who are worrying, especially on the offensive line. Zach Yancer has never officially been an offensive line coach in the NFL. Matt Applebaum returns after a less than exciting stint. This combination raises alarms. The trench game is fundamental, and if the foundation isn't solid, the entire offensive plan can crumble. However, there are reasons for optimism. Chris Tabor is a good name on special teams. John Embry, as mentioned, is a solid tight ends coach. Liddell Betts at the helm of the running backs is an unknown quantity, but there's potential there. And perhaps most importantly, we have a new GM. For the first time in 10 years, the Dolphins are stepping out of Chris Grier's shadow. This means a new philosophy, new decisions, and who knows, new directions. It's an era of change. Change of leadership, of mentality, of culture. And even without big names, this new coaching group can bring something the Dolphins desperately need: consistency, tactical intelligence, and player development. Of course, we'll only know if all this will really work when the pads are put in place, when joint practices begin, when the preseason gives the first clues. And, as always, it's only around the 4th week of the regular season that we start to see who the Miami Dolphins 2026 version really are. Looking at what we can expect from the Dolphins defense in 2026, the first thing we need to understand is the DNA of Sean Dugan and Jeff Hafley, because that's where the skeleton of this new defensive identity begins to form. Dugan comes from the Green Bay School of Linebackers, a unit that has had its highs and lows. Miami has a strong defensive structure, but in recent times it has evolved significantly, especially after the arrival of talents like Micah Parsons, allowing for creative adaptations in the defensive structure. Of course, we're not saying Miami has a Parsons on its roster, but the central point here is Dugan's ability to adapt schemes to his players, not the other way around. And that's crucial. Jeff Hafley, in turn, has already demonstrated at Boston College a preference for aggressive defenses, emphasizing pressure with the defensive line and a disciplined secondary. He likes physical players who communicate well and can read plays even before the ball leaves the quarterback's hands. And the combination of these two philosophies, Dugan and Hafley, could be the difference this defense needs to take the next step. If Vic Fangio brought a sophisticated but excessively rigid scheme, Dugan and Hafley can offer a more fluid, more adjustable defense in real time, something that the current NFL demands. But for this vision to work, the question remains, does the Dolphins' defensive roster have the right pieces for this puzzle? This will depend on several factors, especially how this new coaching staff develops the talent already on the team. One point that deserves special attention is the defensive line. Austin Clark's name still appears as the DL coach, but his continued tenure hasn't been confirmed, and this creates uncertainty. Having a solid leader on the front line is absolutely essential, even more so with a front office that needs to make important decisions about contracts and cap space. And speaking of difficult decisions, fans will also need to get used to some departures. When you have such a significant change in the leadership structure, new head coach, new GM, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, it's inevitable that some players who were previously untouchable will be questioned. The question isn't just who is good, but who fits the new mentality. And here, we can't ignore the Tua Tagovailoa factor. While this is a conversation that deserves an entire video, it's impossible to talk about the future of the defense without mentioning the impact the quarterback situation could have on the rest of the team. If Tua stays and renews with a hefty contract, it directly impacts how much room we have to invest in defensive talent. If the team chooses to go another way, a different range of possibilities opens up, including in building the roster as a whole. All of this is on the radar of the new management. But back to the defense, there's a great deal of curiosity about how this unit will be under Dugan's command. The expectation is to see a more reactive defense, more aggressive in blitzes, with hybrid formations that can adapt to different types of offenses, something that Fangio, despite his theoretical brilliance, was slow to implement on the field. Dugan, on the other hand, may bring a more practical, direct, and execution-based approach instead of excessive complexity. And that may be exactly what the group needs at this moment of transition. Another aspect worth mentioning is the youth of several of the new members of the coaching staff. This can be seen as a risk. Of course, lack of experience will always be an issue, but it can also be a positive point. They are coaches with hunger, eager to prove they can make a difference, that they are not stuck in old methods. And this new energy, if well channeled, can bring a competitive edge that makes all the difference in close games, especially in the AFC where every detail counts. Ultimately, we are entering an experimental phase, and this may be the biggest attraction of the upcoming season. There are no guarantees, but there is potential. There are no established stars on the staff, but there are new ideas. And, above all, there's a conducive environment to rebuild, to rethink what it means to be the Miami Dolphins in 2026. After years of broken promises, do we now have a project that will truly consolidate? So, fans, tell me, do you believe this new defense under Sean Dugan and Jeff Hafley can be the turning point the Dolphins so desperately need? Do you think this more adaptable and aggressive approach can finally put Miami among the best defenses in the NFL? I want to see your opinion in the comments. If you enjoyed this content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. 2 more special videos about the Dolphins are appearing on your screen. Click there, keep binge watching, and